Calling the CPOC committee meeting to order for May 21st, 2012. Do we have anyone here from the public making a comment?
No public speakers.
Okay, thank you. Approval of the minutes from our last meeting of April 23rd, 2012. Everybody, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Linda, do we have any changes to the work plan?
One change to the work plan for next month. We had scheduled a discussion of positive train control, which we are moving out to October. Hopefully we will know a little bit better about what Congress is doing vis-a-vis PTC, and we'll then be able to bring you a full report.
Great. We had a very detailed report this morning, but pretty outlining where we are at the Railroad Committee meeting. So we'll look forward to when the government decides what to do or not do. Okay. Now we'll turn it over to Dr. Michael. This is the well-awaited report on East Side Access. It's been distributed to all the members as well as it'll be up here on the board. Can we have the lights? All yours, Michael.
Okay. Before I engage in discussing the result of our cost and schedule reassessment, I thought it was important to present to you the 2009 ranges. At the time, the decision was to manage at a budget level of $7.32 billion, closer to the low-end range of our estimate. As we have been reporting during the last year, we have some significant pressure on both budget and schedule that require us to go through a formal risk assessment and analysis. The high ranges in both 2009 and 2012 are similar in terms of budget. As you can see in the 2012 exercise, our budget and dates are in agreement pretty much with the Federal Transit Administration. I would like to point out that none of these numbers include $463 million for rolling stock, which is fully funded in the 10 to 14 plan. The risk-informed budget and schedule, at the very beginning of it, okay, first of all, I would like you to see that it's consistent pretty much, and we had a risk policy of 80% probability that the project will be delivered at or below the risk-informed budget. And this is a policy that was instituted in 2011. We have $360 million of contingency that represents approximately 8% of the remaining $4.6 billion to be spent. And our expectation in the next year is to award over $1.5 billion that will provide additional cost certainty at that point. The efficiency in MTA project and interagency program will fund an additional $200 million commitment needed in the current plan, plus in addition of 720 that will be addressed in the 15 to 19 plan, with the expectation that additional efficiencies in MTA project can cover some of these increases. Again, following the policy, the 2009 rebaselining would have resulted in an over $8 billion budget, but that was not the case as we progressed. Now, what changed and that made us to need to go forward and do another rebaselining and risk assessment? As I said, we are reporting by mid-2011 significant construction delays in both Manhattan and Harold. And delays in Harold resulted in schedule compression that placed stress on resources and outages. Other critical regional projects have put further pressure on resources and outages. And in fact, both cost and schedule contingency have been largely consumed. The following steps were taken. The first thing that we have done is to develop a new estimate and schedule forecast. And we used as the basis for risk assessment, okay, conducted by Golder Associates, that is an independent facilitator and modeler, these numbers to be able to determine whatever new forecast will be. I want to point out that all stakeholders were represented in the process, including Long Island Railroad, Metro North, Amtrak, the IEC, FTA, the PMOC, as well as our consultant, Jacobs, that was retained specifically for this particular piece of work. So what we produce is a new risk-informed based cost and schedule plus contingency, and we establish a new total risk-informed value which provided 80% probability that the final cost and schedule will be at or below these levels. Now, what are some of the potential risks and mitigations? I'm specifically looking at the rebuilding and expansion of the Harold interlocking. That is the busiest and most complex passenger railroad interlocking in the U.S. with about 700 train movements on a daily basis. This particular area was actually, in general, not improved. There was some improvement that happened in early 90s, but besides that, mostly we're looking at infrastructure that at some point is 100 years old. So what really is important here in this 1 mile of rail, that we need some critical tracks outages and craft personnel that is timed to our needs. To complicate these issues, there are major rail projects in the New York metropolitan area, and these are major projects, 2 of which are real estate projects, but have an impact on railroad operation. While extremely important to the regions, both from an operational and economic perspective, they are not part of the original plan of East Side Access. Nevertheless, it is imperative that we continue to work with our partners and allow all projects to progress for the benefit of the region as a whole.
Michael, could I interrupt you just for a
Yeah.
second? The interlocking, what exactly is it and how does it function?
Okay, let me go back. What you have is, if you see there it says to Penn Station. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what we're doing is that there are 4 tunnels going into Penn Station, and then what you do have here is an interplay between the Amtrak that is actually traveling towards Hellgate Bridge and goes into New Haven and towards Boston, as well as the Long Island Railroad that has a number of lines coming and all converging onto Penn Station. So there is a lot of crisscrossing that occurs in that area. To complicate matters,
I'm going to jump in, Michael, just to
Yeah.
help you on a technical level with regard to an interlocking. An interlocking is a section of track controlled by signals, and it regulates the number of trains that can enter that particular stretch of track, how they enter, where the switches have to be aligned. Harold is controlled out of Penn Station Central Control, and there's actually one interlocking right between the portals and Harold, which is known as F interlocking, which is still Amtrak territory. So it is a very dense area of signals and switches, and the interlocking controls the number of trains that can enter and exit on those switches through the signal system.
So when all the trains converge into this one area, they're sent in different directions? Is that simply stated?
That's simply stated, a good way to put it. A lot of train activity converging onto the tracks in that territory.
Okay, thank you.
And that includes New Jersey Transit that stores trains during the day in Sunnyside.
Okay, thank you.
And we do work,
Amtrak. That's correct.
and we
Amtrak.
do work for both F and in both F and Harold.
Right.
This is a 15-mile stretch that I'm showing there on the board, and it goes from the Harold interlocking to the Portal Bridge and the high speed. So you have the North River, the East River, the Moynihan Station, the Brookfield related. All are projects that now materialize, and we have to work together in order to make sure that they're getting their work done and we do ours.
Thank you.
Now, Highlights in Harold, very simple. We are doubling the number of switches. We are replacing 11 miles of new track. We construct 5 new railroad bridges. We're replacing catenary poles that are 100 years old, about over 300 of them. We're constructing 1.25 miles of new retaining wall, replacing and installing 12 new central instrument locations, and we're constructing 2 1,000 feet long new bypass tunnels for the east and west bypass for Amtrak. Now, the shared east side access, tunnel access, and coordination issues, and I believe that we had added access, or we addressed the fact that we added access points to ease the potential conflict between contracts. Nevertheless, this is still a challenge, and we need to do more. So while portions of the tunnels get blocked when installing track and variety of other systems, we have multiple contractors working, so that presents a significant risk that we still need to work on and mitigate.
Michael, were the before we get too far ahead,
Yeah.
the highlights in Harold were each of the items that are listed on that slide envisioned in the original project?
Not all of them, but many of them, they were envisioned. Nevertheless,
Included in the
That's correct.
price and the schedule.
they were originally included. Like I said, not all of them, but they were included. However, through the compression of schedule, we now need to address this in a compressed fashion, and that presents additional risk. So when you do work, and this is a very delicate type work that you need to have the train stop and you have to have the power cut, that requires you to actually, in a confined area now, more than what we had before, it is much more complicated than we envisioned to be.
And the schedule compression was, from your description of it, it sounds like that would have, that was going to happen regardless of what path we were on. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. We had delays that were actually before these additional projects came online, and they actually pushed our schedule tighter together. So when all of these things came together, there were additional pressures that resulted in it. Yes, Mark?
Maybe one question you're not going to answer, which is how do you allocate costs and work priority between yourself, Amtrak, and New Jersey Transit as you weave your way through here? And then, but my more basic question is, if you are getting to a point where the interference of the different projects on this line is making an already problematically complicated project more so, are we at a point where we should actually be thinking about not trying to get closer to a schedule which we've already blown thoroughly, but rather deciding that here we are today, what are we going to do going forward now to minimize the cost and disruption and general confusion that's going to go on over this 15 miles of track, which is crucial to all of us over the next period of time?
Mark, if I can start to respond, we have commenced meetings with Amtrak weekly, and I've been talking to the president of Amtrak as well, so that we are partners in this project together. The other projects that are involved, I mean, what's really going on more than anything else is that there are so many available trackmen, those guys who are available to work on these projects. And the bulk
So
of...
many meaning that many, no more. Yes.
Well, no, when I'm talking about the trackmen, those who are approved to work on the tracks, and they have multiple different choices. They can pick all along the East Coast. And there is a phenomenal backlog of work. It's just going to require a lot of coordination, communication, which has started and actually going to be helpful with the work that's commencing with Moynihan this summer, where we're actually seeing Amtrak as well as Long Island Railroad have certain reductions in their schedule as well to meet their needs. It's the beginning of a process that'll continue to go on. As far as your allocation of costs?
But just on this thing,
Yeah.
just as you go out of it, I guess I'm wondering whether we should consider a deliberate sort of elongation of the time frame for this whole mass of projects to get done, as opposed to sort of trying to fight back on that.
We're not fighting back. We're working together, and I think one of the things that you'll see in the very first page of this presentation is that both the federal government, the federal FRA, and the MTA have the same dollar amount as the cost. You'll note that the FRA and the FTA, excuse me, I apologize, are slightly different as far as ending. We think it's going to end in August of 19. They think September of 19. It's, you know, it's pretty good to be pretty close. But what I will tell you, and what's really important, and Michael mentioned it, I'd like to mention it one more time, we are looking at 80% probability, which is a new approach, which puts us much closer to, you know, in fact, if we put the 80% probability in 2009, we'd be at a little bit over $8 billion. The difference between the highs and the highs between these two periods are not there. I think the era of looking at projects and looking at the middle number and trying to meet the target of that middle number has been consistently blown year in and year out. We've got to go with the right number. The public deserves that. And it's just, you know, the approach that started here a year ago, and I want to make sure that everybody understands that as part of it.
Mr. Chairman, on the previous slide, and picking up on your mention of TrackMan, where we show all of these various projects that are impacting the Harold interlocking. Excuse me. It wasn't clear to me until you just brought this up. Are we saying that the reason that all of these other things are impacting Harold is because they are calling on people that we need? I understand that we have the East River Tunnel, which is kind of physically combined with this problem, but the rest of them seem to be somewhat away from it in terms of the physical connections, and it's more. Is it more just a call on people?
It's not more just a call on people. It's one of the many issues. It's not it's one of the many issues. It's not the sole issue. It's not the dominant issue, but it is one. If you read in the Wall Street Journal today, I think there was an accurate description of how that's operating in the New York section of the Wall Street Journal today. It's not the only issue with the TrackMan, with the available professionals that are necessary. Sorry.
So moving along is really procurement risks, and one of the main issues that we have, due to the fact most of our projects are extremely complex and large size, so the contractors that are available that combine both the ability to bond and prosecute jobs that are in excess of $400 million and also have the technical expertise to carry them out is very limited. Therefore, when you deal with a limited pool of contractors, there are risks that we may not get the best results when we put a bid out. And in fact, we are now in the process of going through an RFP process to select the contractor for the systems, and we hope that will end up being successful. But again, that's a major issue. So we have a number of upcoming major contracts, the Manhattan Structures, another 2 system contracts, and as well as the Grand Central Concourse fit out. So these are contracts that we expect to, in effect, in the next year or so, to be able to receive bids and awards. So we'll have to see. At that point, we'll have much more certainty in terms of costs. The risk and delays during installation and integration. The installation of a significant number of new system elements is challenging by its mere size. Yet in addition, The design of the system is being done well in advance of their installation, creating risks, and the interface between the integration of the new legacy system further complicates matters. So what I'm trying to say here is that we are designing it well in advance, and 5 years later we are putting it to bid, at which point there is a possibility for technology to change, and we have to really look to see how we can actually deal with that. There are a number of mitigations that we're going to put in place to deal with all these issues, and we're going to continue to monitor the actual experience. By the way, not all risks tend to materialize, and we hope that that will be the case. Nevertheless, due to the nature of the project, we need to maintain a flexible approach in order to meet or exceed targets. So we may have to be flexible enough and dynamic enough to change when it's needed. Now, the mitigations that we're looking at fall into 3 distinct categories: engineering, contract interface and coordinations, and policy. The engineering, we will continue to work. We have an operational readiness group that is formed with Long Island Railroad to address testing and commissioning, and we'll continue to do that. The resequencing of the Harald cutovers is going to be also important, and that's where we also need to be flexible as to how we do, depend on availability. And then one of the issue is the creation, what we call an obsolescence review committee. Due to the fact that we'll have designs that are older and new technologies emerge, we needed to be able to evaluate system to decide, do we make a change or we do not make a change? And that's a very, it's an important element as to how we're going to manage that. The contract interface coordination is really for us to be able to continue to create additional access points and do scope transfer between contracts, so to be able to segregate between the various contractors so they will not have to share space. When it comes to policy decisions, this is really in the realm of potential service reductions, and I would like to offer an example of something that we're doing this summer. And this is the BC Tunnel, and we are taking switch 813 out of service, and by doing that we are reducing the peak hour AM for Long Island Railroad by 3 trains, and that will save us or will allow us to finish the BC Tunnel 2 years ahead of what we otherwise needed to do. So this type of policy decisions will need to be made in order for us to be able to move the project forward. In summary, we will be in effect managing at 8.24, and we will report to the board and CPOC with a cost of 7.88 and a $360 million contingency level. I want to make a point here that is important. Most of the infrastructure that will go we are building will go online way before the East Side Access Revenue Service will occur, and that will provide a significant benefits to both Amtrak and Long Island Railroad operation as we move along by changing switches, by updating signals. This is something that these are benefits that will occur and that will be accrued to the system as a whole. Now, we'll continue to use the risk model as a management tool. That means we're going to continually update the risk model. We'll do what-if scenarios to see what is the most beneficial that we can address and change. And we'll work with all our stakeholders on mitigation strategies. We are, yes.
Do you have the current? Sorry. Do you have the current breakdown of the funding of the 8.24? Whose money? How much?
Yes, we do. Linda? If you...
We'll get that to you. The full funding grant agreement federal amount is set. Excuse me?
At
2.65. 2.65.
So the rest is local, most of it. as you know, has been funded, and the rest would be the next program.
And we've also applied for the RIF loan.
Yep, that's right. Joe reminds me that we applied for this project for the $2.2 billion RIF loan as well.
How could you forget?
How could I? I guess that shows I'm in another head.
Michael, could I just ask
Yeah.
a quick question? The change to the BC tunnel that you mentioned and the reduction by 3 trains per hour in the rush hour, have those branches been identified and those particular runs identified yet?
Helena?
Elena?
Actually, we'll be presenting that in the June board meeting. There are 9 trains that use that switch in the PM. We don't want to disproportionately impact any one branch, so we've got to reshuffle the deck and spread, the train service out a little bit. 3 trains actually will come out of the schedule.
Okay, and so that's coming out up in June.
That'll be in June.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I'd like to highlight then one other point that was made earlier by Michael, and that is while the FTA, we agree on what the costs are to build the project of $8.24 billion. In addition to that, there's $463 million for the rolling stock that will be necessary, and that's a point that I wanted to make sure that got across.
And that's funded in this program.
And that's funded in this program. That is correct, that it's fully funded.
Current program.
Yes.
Current program, yes. Yes. With the lights.
Oh, we have the
Any other
IEC
questions?
comments?
Yes. Kurt? IEC comments?
Yes. The IEC participated in the cost and schedule review and the risk assessment, and we support the results. For the future, we think that procurements of upcoming large and complex contracts are going to be the most significant near-term risk.
Michael did indicate that while I won't be able to get from Ronkonkoma to Grand Central until 2019 in a one-seat ride, between 2012 and 2019, there will be a variety of infrastructure improvements made in the interlocking and assorted areas around it, which will improve the service for current Long Island Railroad customers. I think it would be helpful in all of this discussion if Capital Construction and Long Island Railroad and the IEC could put together a list of what those are, how they will benefit the current riders, because some current riders may get to 2019, but many of them will not, in that context. But we'll see that obviously there are improvements to service going on while this is ongoing. I think that would be very helpful in this discussion so that we can show people, notwithstanding the fact that 2019 is 2019, things will improve, or at least infrastructure things will improve as we go along. I think that would be very helpful.
Next time we're coming to the board, we'll do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Time permitting, we are now going to, let's talk about the Fulton Center, and then after that, let's go into Second Avenue subways.
Okay, the overall project is on schedule for June 14, the 2014, not June 14, 2012, June 2014. And we're trending below the current budget of $1.4 billion. We are making progress in the installation of the curtain wall, and we expect completion by September. We're getting the delivery of the Corbin Building escalators, and we are completing the installation of 2 out of the 19 elevators that we expect for the 4-5 Fulton Street station. In the 90 days look ahead, we expect to, in effect, provide the benefit milestone for the 4-5 station, as well as the milestone for the Day Street Concourse, which is ahead of schedule. So that will happen. When we go to the cost and schedule performance, we are again, in terms of the dollars, we are about ahead in the burn rate, and we are significantly ahead in terms of the third-party construction. So the expectation is that we'll be finishing on time, on budget. If you look at the cost schedule and contingency status, we have done we have about 70% of the work to be done, and we still have contingency at 81 percentile. And in terms of the remaining contingency dollars, we are down to about 55%. So it's about $69 million. The critical milestone and issues that we may have is really the enhanced public experience and the full integration of the emerging technology for the Fulton Center complex. And here is basically to any delays or that could be in negotiation that could reduce the schedule contingency. We have directed the contractor to proceed on critical enhancements. We've been able to negotiate most of the contracts and the change orders, so we believe that this is well within our control at this point. The customer benefits, we have two customer benefits due this July, and this is the 4-5 station rehab and the Day Street entrance. They're both going to be delivered in July. Potentially the Day Street concourse could be also completed ahead of schedule. We have a schedule of November. We expect potentially to finish it earlier. And the rest will be for the remainder of the year. The IEC?
IEC report, Bob?
Yes, the IEC agrees with the MTA's schedule contingency and their statement that the project is on schedule to meet the proposed date of June of 2014. And the IEC also agrees with the MTA's contingency assessment and their statement that the project is on budget. The critical milestone issue, the IEC agrees with the MTACC and that the progressing of the negotiations and the issuance of the enhancement change order remains critical.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from any of the members?
The only thing I would say is the chart, go back 2 charts. No, go up 1. Keep going the other way. Next. Next. Right there. See that? We should do the same thing for East Side Access.
Yeah, no, you're right. We'll see if we can.
That
Yes.
will, right.
We will.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Good point. Any further comments? Let's move on to Second Avenue Subway.
Okay, on schedule to meet the December 2016 revenue service date. On budget, actually, we have well within budget. The progress, we received 7 bids for the 96th Street station. The winning bid is Cruz Talley for $324 million, and this is $73 million below our budget, so that increases our contingency there. As I showed it during committee meeting, we have begun the East Side slurry wall at entrances 1 and 2. And we achieved substantial completion of the TBM tunneling contract, so they're out. And we began controlled blasting operation at 86th Street Cavern. The 90-day look ahead, and we'll complete the mock systems at 86th Street. This is very important because we also are installing their scrubbers to improve our ability to retain dust. We are going to complete all cavern blasting for the 72nd Street station. This is in June. And we're going to continue control blasting for the ancillary at 72nd and 69. This is going to probably end sometime the end of this year, sometime October, November. And in addition to that, we complete the slurry panels and the secant piles. Next. In terms of the plan, we are about we're 98.8 for the dollars through April, and we are in terms of third-party construction, we are slightly ahead of schedule. When it comes to project schedule contingency, at this point, we have 80 days, the same time as last time reported. We are still engaged in a effort to recover additional time, particularly at 86th Street Station cavern contract, as well as the future finishes contract and the integrating testing for them. The cost contingency is we have right now $322 million. Plus, if we have 319, I'm sorry, a decrease of 20 million since last reported. Nevertheless, does not include the $73 million that we actually gonna benefit from. So, again, while the project is about, we're looking at the number at 63%, we're going to be above the 99% when we look at the dollars. Next. Some of the issues. 86th Street is truly is a contract that is on the critical path, and we had delays in the award that I think that I've reported that at the time about 4.5 months of delays, we are still working on developing mitigation plans. Right now, we are also implementing here the same thing we did on 72nd Street. That means we are limiting the blasting to 7 p.m. and that will have impacts. There will be some cost impacts that we are aware of, but the question will be the schedule delays due to limited amount of hours of blasting, and that again we are in the discussion right now with the contractor to identify mitigating measures to see how we can actually accelerate that without actually getting everyone awakened in the middle of the night. This is not our aim, and that's why we put a 7 p.m. Limitation. Next. We have somewhat of an issue at entrance number 1 at 69th Street, where we are actually creating an entry to the system through a store under a building, and we have some issues with easements, and again we're working through it right now to see how we can solve that. And that's although it's not on the critical path, I believe that anything could become a critical item. So we are working to solve that. So that's on the contract 4B. Next. Again, this is ongoing mitigation for dust, smoke, and construction inspection. I think that it's pretty much behind us, and we have been able to manage that quite well. And I hope that we're going to be able to do the same for 86th Street. That's it. We had a litigation at 86th Street that was resolved, and you know, there were some issues there. We have been asked to meet with a variety of people, and we're probably going to hold a meeting after that just to make sure that everything is addressed.
Report from the independent engineer. Ken?
Yes, in our analysis, we've looked at the schedule closely. We don't agree with the stated contingency from MTA Capital. We think there's a substantial amount of that contingency at risk due to the overlap of station finish and station equipment installation work. We're working with the project on that and hope to have a series of workshops concluded by the time we report to the board again. We do agree that the project is well on budget.
Thank you. Mark? Can you have the lights, please?
This question of well on budget, if you have a contract that's actually come in significantly below budget, which I gather is one of the things that's occurred here, Why does that just drift into the contingency reserve for the project? Why shouldn't it come out of the project if you thought the reserve was adequate before that happened?
If I may answer that, we are always at risk of having to incur costs for as long as we are under contract. So although we are happy to see that we have a war chest to cover costs, we are not at this point in a position to relinquish it.
It does occur to me that it's an additional cushion that you didn't think you had, and I fear that the additional cushion will add to your comfort in giving them money along the way.
That's my job, to eradicate the comfort.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Asked and answered.
Well, no, it's just, I appreciate that. That's why in the two prior presentation on East Side Access, we broke out the hard cost and the contingency. The 7.88 is the target, and we keep on that target. And we come back to the board for taking money out of the contingency or making aware of it. Are there any other questions? I'm sorry?
Putting extra money in, which is what you're doing now.
Correct. Are there any other questions? Are there any other comments? Now for the last and final report of Linda Kleinbaum on commitments, completions, and funding.
All I was going to say is the commitments completions report is in the book. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. No fool I.
About 412 questions. I'm going to keep you here forever.
Okay.
Thanks. Are there any other questions? Are there any other comments? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Seconded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg?
Chairman, from what we're hearing today, is there any chance that the East Side Access project could be put on hold?
Absolutely. No. And in fact, I'm surprised that you would come to that conclusion at all.
Well, do you think it should, given the scope of the budget?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This project is well on its way. It's well planned. And we are proceeding working with our partners, Amtrak in particular, as well as the FTA, to make sure that this project comes in, as we're now saying, in 2019, and at 8.24, no more than 8.24 million. Remember, that includes the contingency, and I'm going to do everything I can, as I said in the meeting, to make sure that we manage to the project number of 7.88. Though we will budget 8.24, including the contingency.
Why should riders believe this number, this estimate now?
Well, last time we did the estimate, if you remember the chart that was put up and available, last time it was a 20% probability that it would be achieved. We've now gone to 80% probability. And I think that's significant. I think anytime you do any kind of a capital project and you budget to 20% of probability, it's almost a guarantee that you're going to go over budget. We're now at 80% probability, which gives me significant more comfort and should give the riders significant more comfort.
20%, not 50%?
It was 20% in 2009. Right. So you can see the distinction. I mean, you know.
Could you talk a little bit about the need to balance train operations, both for MTA and for Amtrak, and getting this construction work done? And moving forward in the next few years, if you want to stay on this schedule, can you talk a little bit about how service will have to be altered or changed in some way to make way for all this construction to happen?
It's hard for me to talk about what service delivery changes that'll be, but over time, as we've always done, we will bring it to the board. We will make sure the public is aware. We will advertise it to the public. But this summer there are some changes that are being made, specifically made to make ability to move this project forward. Some changes are being made this summer in regard to Moynihan Station as well, both Amtrak and the Long Island Railroad. So there will be some, and it will be advertised and properly made available, and people will know. We're going to stretch them out. Trains will be stretched out a little longer.
Can you sum up why, again, the deadline or the completion date is being pushed back, and is this just a complete MTA failure, or is this project so complex? I mean, how would you explain to people why it's happening again?
The project is complex. In 2009, the FTA said it would come due in mid-2018. We believe it'll come due in mid-2019. The complexity of this project, as outlined in the presentation, combined with all of the issues that we're finding on both the Manhattan side, but most importantly on the Queens side, and trying to work through Harold interlocking, which was described at the meeting as very complex. I will tell you it is the most complex interlocking anywhere in the United States. I believe, and correct me where I go wrong here, Elena, there are 800 trains?
Including all of the different non-revenue equipment
Right.
that moves, it's approximately 800 with everybody all added together.
Right, 800 trains all in this 1 mile area all day long. You know, when Helena is talking about non-revenue trains, those are ones that have no passengers on board that we're bringing into a station like Jersey Transit, which then comes through the East River tunnels and parks during the day over in Queens.
With 800 trains passing through a day.
Right, 800 trains passing through a day through 2 tunnels. It is extremely complex, and it's what I call the miracle of Penn Station. It happens every day. In answer to your question again, I think it's the complexity of this project. We recognize how complex this project is.
Neighbors in Sunnyside have been living with this project as neighbors along 2nd Avenue have. What would you expect that the change to the work, how that may impact them? May they notice more noise at night? That's something that I've been hearing from them.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the noise that they hear predates any of this project. They live next to the most active rail yard in the country.
There's some drilling that is going on there. There is some nighttime work.
Hold on one second.
There is some work that occasionally we have to do. It's work, for instance, we're putting up a signal tower most recently a few weekends ago that can only be done in that particular location during the overnight period. And that's what happens when, as the chairman said, when you live next to an interlocking, you can't stop the trains to put up this tower, and it needs to be done at night. We do everything we can to make sure that we don't have excessive noise, and we also make sure that we go out of our way to let the community know well in advance, and they're aware for these situations.
The comparison to 2nd Avenue subway I don't think is apt. I think the fact that we're building a subway underground going for longer stretches than this, it's not applicable.
Could there be more, you know, you see in the subway system, you get things shut down overnight or on the weekends. I mean, 3 trains doesn't seem like a hell of a lot to me. Could there be more shutdowns to
There
make
are
this?
9, because during one interlock, there are 9 trains that go through this one interlock. 6 of them are being rescheduled, 3 are being eliminated. It makes a world of difference in getting this project done. It really does. Okay. Helena's reminding me this is a 3-week period, and there'll be more like that. You'll move from one to another, so you'll see certain reductions in the number of trains, but not a reduction in getting there. So you will see longer trains, you will see more crowded trains, but there will be the ability to get home or get to work. These are in the evening, actually, so it's getting home.
This is, can you just start that again? You see longer trains, more crowded trains as a result of, you see more of these?
This BC tunnel operation is just a 3-week period this summer starting around July 6th. We are doing a special schedule insert. We'll revert back to the normal schedule when the BC tunnel drilling is done, the tunneling is done. But what we're trying to do is give you an example that we do need to be flexible. We will be rescheduling some trains. We will try to do a little bit of collapsing of the schedule where we can. That's what we're doing with the 3 trains we're taking out. And this is, you know, in a sense, this is the beginning where we do have to demonstrate some flexibility while maintaining all of our core commuter rail services. We generally try to have more outages on weekends. We try to schedule a 55-hour weekend outage. The complexity of this project is we are also undergoing East River Tunnel total track replacement. So when you have a tunnel out for track replacement, we have to make sure that the platform and the switches available in Herald all align properly to allow trains to keep moving through. So everything's got to be lined up, the platforms that are available, the tunnels that are available, and the switches that are available to keep trains moving. So it is a very coordinated effort that we're doing on a regular basis.
I wanted to ask about the impact of the Amtrak workers, their schedule, unionized workers, weekend schedules. How much of an impact has that been having on the ability of your workers to get their job done on the weekends?
We're getting a lot of work done, but there are times when there aren't enough available. This isn't Amtrak's fault, and it's not the workers' fault. There are only so many workers that are available, and they're being spread over numerous different projects from Philadelphia up here to New York, all throughout the Northeast Corridor.
Can Amtrak do a better job, though?
It has nothing to do, as I said before.
This
This isn't an Amtrak issue. This is not an Amtrak issue. Amtrak has been working very, very well with us in going forward and being partnership on this. Because
and
what
in fact, they added a crew. They added a,
right, and they've added
Yeah,
crews. They've added
they
crews
added
in the
again.
past as well. So I think any aspersion towards Amtrak is false, almost malicious. It has nothing to do with our relationship with Amtrak or what they're doing.
And, sorry, this is just a question going back to what you were describing a moment ago, just for the sake of clarity. Am I correct in hearing that out of the 9 trains that go through the BC tunnel, with the 6 that will be rescheduled and the 3 that will be taken off the schedule, is that only for a 3-week period?
It's only for a 3-week period while the tunnel is being dug. What it is a very active switch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but there may be other similar types of things
That's
involving other
exactly.
trains that will occur also,
Over time.
but that
Over time.
is
Over
over,
time.
right?
Right.
Okay.
Over time. One
Thanks.
thing to look at, and I've explained this to folks as well, that the investment of East Side Access is going to be extraordinary, both for New York and for Long Island. With every investment requires a certain amount of capital and input, and as part of that capital is also how do you work in an interlock that continues to operate at the same time. That is in and of itself a cost. I don't think about it as a cost. I think about it as an investment, because once East Side Access opens, it will make ridership to and from Long Island much more plentiful and much more pleasant for those who want to come to the East Side.
Are you comfortable with the 80% likelihood that it'll be finished on time?
I am comfortable with them. I am.
And over the course of the next 7 years, what will be done to keep costs in
Well,
line?
as we mentioned, well, first off, we're going to be reporting to CPOC quarterly with those red and green dots that you saw in there. So we'll be coming back to the board. Management will be coming back to the board on a quarterly basis to show where they are.
Did you know about this soon enough, this problem?
I knew about it the week before I started here. Yes. It was actually in briefing 1. So yes.
These kind of outages that you talked about for the digging of this tunnel, is that to keep on the schedule, or is that they required to try to catch up time?
It's to keep on the schedule, I believe. It's not to catch up time at all.
Would you please give us a comment? Oh, sorry, please.
Yeah.
Would you give us a comment, please, regarding the Inspector General of the Federal DOT and his audit upcoming for East Side Access?
Received a note last week that the Inspector General is doing his audits. I believe he did one 2 years ago. They routinely do this, and I look forward to working with him. Took the memo and passed it around. There's nothing surprising by this at all. It's a routine in the normal course of events.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.